I came across a great quote by Trey Parker, as you know, the co-creator of South Park. Someone asked him, why has South Park become political? He said, politics has become pop culture.
He's trying to give you an alibi. He's going after Trump with South Park because he hates Trump. And he's trying to expose through humor the hypocrisy and the meanness and the viciousness. Trump does not find it funny, trust me. He hates it.
I'm Joanna Coles. This is the Daily Beast podcast. Who better to have on this week than Anthony Scaramucci to help us sift through the emails, the files, and of course his most recent, very provocative Instagram post, which is entitled The End of the Trump Presidency. Anthony is, of course, the short-lived White House press spokesperson for Donald Trump. He's also the founder of Skybridge Capital, and he has his own podcast with a brilliant British podcaster, Catty Kay. The rest is politics. So no time to waste. Let's get into it. Anthony Scaramucci, thrilled to have you back. Let's get straight into it.
Good to be back, Joanna.
Well, I want to speak about a very provocative post you put on Instagram entitled The End of the Trump Presidency. What did you mean?
Well, he's a lame duck. And things happen faster in our civilization than ever before. We put our Christmas lights up like 5 days before Halloween. The stores get decorated in September for Christmas. You know, we know things are happening a lot faster. He's a lame duck, and he's racing now towards the midterm elections in his lame duck status, and his party hates him. And so anybody that thinks the party likes him doesn't understand the party. And that could be the donors who hold their nose and give him money, or that could be the political class that lives with him in Washington. And I submit to you that if you're inside Trump's inner orbit, you hate the guy's guts. And he knows that, you know that, but there's a dance because you're afraid of him, because he's intimidating you because of his political prowess and his media presence. He's sort of the Bigfoot, he's Sasquatch of social media, and you don't want him Bigfooting your ass.
Right.
So you're afraid of him, but you hate his guts. And the time has come now where the surface cracks are becoming more structural and foundation cracks. And you can't look at what happened yesterday where you had 420 people vote in the same direction. The entire Senate voted in the same direction. Look at me, I'm scratching my nose. For those of you on YouTube, I'm scratching my nose with a middle finger. That's a big FU to Donald Trump. And so his presidency is ending. And there's a lot of people in Washington, when they get dressed in the morning, they see the 48th president, and they don't see him as the 48th president. So Steve Bannon can say whatever the hell he wants. Trump's not going to be president in 2029. There'll be a new president. Democrats are still in disarray unless they figure it out. It'll probably be a Republican president, but they still have time. But they want to shoot at each other. You know, they are so self-righteous and so picayune. You know, if you say one thing wrong to a progressive, you can say 7 things, and they say, oh, well, I voted for Andrew Cuomo. Okay, I hate you. You're canceled. Okay, well, then you're not going to win an election. So that's what's going on. The presidency is ending, and the power that he has is ending. I think the Supreme Court is going to really finish him off at the end of the month of December. They're going to decide against the tariffs. There's no constitutional purview for him to be able to tax his citizens without representation. That is a foundational thing. The reason why we broke from your old country was no taxation without representation. So that's a foundational thing. So when that nail goes in the coffin, you know, he'll be gasping. Now, he'll be lunging left and right and threatening and acting bombastic and calling people piggy and they're stupid and all this other ridiculous nonsense that he does. But that just makes people hate him more. So, again, you have seething hatred. You have disorganized Democrats that could have finished them a year ago, but they don't know how to do that. But the Republicans have had enough, and they're signaling that to you. So that's what I think.
So how important is the figure of Marjorie Taylor Greene in all this? Because she's not someone you would have expected to perhaps lead the vanguard against Trump. And yet she seems to have illuminated the cracks, perhaps more than anybody else.
Well, I think she's important on a number of different levels. The first level, and this is something, again, the progressives don't understand, because I did Don Lemon's show last night at the City Winery, And they hate Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't hate Marjorie Taylor Greene. If Marjorie Taylor Greene is walking back, we need to create an off-ramp for her out of MAGA land.
You always said this about Elon Musk, that the Democrats should have extended the olive branch to Elon Musk to widen the tent.
They're too righteous. Oh, Elon Musk went with Trump. He's canceled now forever. Okay, dummies, wake up. This politics. Be practical. Create an off-ramp for people. Even if you think Marjorie Taylor Greene is disingenuous, there was some progressive guru that went over her body language and said that she's disingenuous or some shit like that. Who gives? Who gives? Take the messaging from her. Okay, she got stung by Trump because here's the axiomatic fact. Everyone gets stung by Trump. You break from Trump. This is how you get stung by Trump. You take too high of a profile, you take some attention from him, you'll get stung by Trump. You go against him, you'll get stung by Trump. Okay, and so she went against them because she read through the file. She said, this is ridiculous. We campaigned on this. We don't want billionaires and high-profile politicians cavorting with a sex trafficker. We don't want them protecting a sex trafficker. And this is ridiculous. People feel left out. Joanna, the populist movement lives in this country and it lives in the UK because people feel disenfranchised and they feel left out. And so she's speaking to those people. Zohran Mamdani is speaking to those people. They're like, hey, man, this has not been fair to me. Elon's going to be a trillionaire. His buddy Peter Thiel's going to be a half a trillionaire. But it's not fair to us. We're not doing well. And so we need these people to wake up and help us do better, or we want to demolish these people. And so she represents that. And Trump is not playing well. I said on my podcast that he's on his back foot. He's not playing properly. A week ago, I was in Sydney, Australia. I said if Trump was on his game, he would support the release of the file. He knows there's bad stuff in the file about him, but he supports the release of the file. He'll go to his base, who are a bunch of cultist lunatics, and he'll say, hey, I supported the release of the file. So everything in the file is fake news, and everything in the file is Miss Piggy journalism, and everything in the file is not against me. And his base will beat the drum saying, well, he supported it. And then over the weekend, he flipped over to supporting it because he was going to lose disastrously. But he's off his game. He looks tired. He looks bloated. The orange tubing, the shit that comes out of the tube that he's putting on his face is all mishiv-gotch. I mean, what is he doing? His blotches everywhere. He's got to get one of those little powder puffs. You know what I mean? That we, and put it on evenly. The guy, I must be rubbing it on with his fingers or something. I mean, it looks terrible. So, I mean, he's off his game mentally. He's tired. His ankles are swollen. He looks terrible. This whole vicious attacks on people is not, it's bad for the country. It's not what the country stands for. It's bad for the country. So, again, he's polling at 36 right now. You mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene. He goes below 30, Joanna. They're all coming out of the woodwork. Okay, they'll be burning MAGA hats. They'll be pretending I didn't support him, or I only supported him for this reason, and now I don't support him. You watch how these guys turn. Truman said, if you want a friend in Washington, buy a dog. Okay, even the dogs bite in this Washington. Okay, there's no friendships here. Marjorie and Trump are telling each other that our relationship is now over, and she knows that, he knows that, and she's effective. And you can hate her as a progressive or as a liberal, that's fine, but you need 10 more Marjorie Taylor Greenes, and then the Humpty Dumpty comes off the wall, and you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So it's about to end. Yeah, it's and by the way, what I love about people is they see things linearly, and they see his bombast, and they're like, oh, it's going to go on forever, but it's not. But right. People hate it. The people in power, Joanna. You're a good journalist. Pick up the phone and call these people quietly, or call their aides. Go take them out for a drink. They hate the guy. They hate the guy, okay?
They hate the guy.
He's like President Liberace, though, with the decorating. I mean, it's sort of unbelievable with the decorating.
I was going to ask you, what do you think are in the Epstein files? And as we know, Trump once famously said that he could stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and nothing would happen to him. His base would still be with him. Do you think that is changing now? What would it take?
Well, this is about pedophilia. And this is about sex trafficking. And so this is beyond the pale now. So I don't think he can survive that.
Well, we don't know that he's actually done that, right? I mean,
I didn't say that he did it.
No, I know you didn't, but I'm just being careful here.
And you have different libel laws than us and stuff, so I'm not accusing him of anything, okay? I have to wait to see what's in it. But I think there's enough people that have seen it, whether it's Nancy Mace or Laura Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Tom Massey.
Or Elon Musk, who tweeted out that Trump was in the files.
There's enough people that have seen it that know he's too close to the fire. So I'm not accusing him of anything, but I'll just go off of the words of Thomas Massey. You know, he may not have done anything wrong, but he knew of wrongdoing. A result of which you're too close to the fire. You know, you probably don't remember Joe Paterno, but Joe Paterno was a very famous...
I do. Penn State.
Okay, yeah, okay. So he was a very famous high-profile coach at Penn State. Jerry Sandusky was abusing people, and he was a child abuser. He's maybe dead now or in jail. And people knew that Joe knew, and Joe let it slide. And it cost him his head coaching job, and he died unceremoniously because you're too close to the situation. I'm not saying that Joe did anything. I'm not saying that. But they were too close to the situation. Trump is too close to the situation. And he's on his back foot, Joanna. Because if you're on your back foot, you're fighting for 4 or 5 months to put your finger in the dam to keep the thing from coming out, right? And so you can't tell me, because I'm not Sherlock Holmes and you're not Watson, but you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes or Watson, okay? The window's open, clippity-clop, it's a zebra or a horse. I know it's a horse. It's Occam's razor. You don't fight like that to keep that stuff under wraps. Now people say, well, he's going to say there's ongoing investigations and they're going to redact a lot of it. But you have to remember something about the American government. It's out there. Okay, you know, there's 25 different copies in 25 different jurisdictions. And of course, the Epstein estate has it, and Mark Epstein has it. So it's getting out there now. You know, it's going to be out there, and it's not going to be fully redacted, and people are going to know. And I'm not saying he's going to be knocked out of office for this, but his power is going to be liquidated as a result of this. The guy's finished. I mean, and by the way, that's not wishful thinking on my part. That is a analysis based on the break. Let's go over the break. 400 plus members of the House of Representatives, one nut job from Louisiana. I don't know who the guy is, but I mean, it's an embarrassment to the state. He votes with Trump. I don't know what he's doing, okay? And then the Senate, it's 100%. And by the way, Thune, again, I'm scratching my nose, Thune did this to Johnson. Johnson walked out of there pissed. He wanted 3 or 4 different amendments in the bill to provide more protection for Trump because he's a Trump lackey. But Thune hates Trump. Do you have to be a rocket scientist to know that John Thune and Trump are antipodes of each other? No. He's kowtowing to him because he's afraid of him. He doesn't want to get primaried and knocked out of his state like Liz Cheney, but he's biding his time. But last night, no amendments in the Senate bill, and 100% of the people voted with it. You know, Trump's no dummy, by the way. He knows he's playing off his back foot, and he knows he's in trouble. But I predict he'll stay in the presidency. He'll grift another 10. He was heading to grift 20 bills. You know, he's made about 4 so far. I predict he'll make another 5 or 10 billion over the next 3 years. He'll stay in the presidency. It'll be embarrassing. It'll be horrific. It'll be graphically insulting to the rest of the world and most Americans. And then he'll leave, you know, when he leaves. He's not running for a 3rd term or anything like that. I mean, come on.
Right. Well, you're painting this grim picture, and yet, you know, there was this huge dinner for the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia this week. You had the entire tech industry coming out to pay homage. I mean, you could say that Trump is on his back foot, but it felt like he was very much on his front foot for that dinner. He still had captains of industry around the table who know that they need him.
He's sitting in a seat of power, and he's proven to people that he's willing to use the power in a politically motivated way. He's going to go after his adversaries. Jeff Bezos was against him in the first term. He's with him now. All those guys were against them. They're with him now because they don't want to be the law firm in New York that's paying $100 million of this or that. They don't want to be Harvard University. They don't want to be attacked with the cudgel of the American government. Every one of those people got the memo. Pam Bondi, in addition to being the Attorney General, happens to be the head of the Trump family law firm. And so if we got to go after somebody, or we got to use the power of the federal government indiscriminately to attack people. They just announced something last week. I don't remember what it was. You probably do, but I was like laughing. It's just another joke case, okay? Going after Comey. The judge is ridiculing him for the joke case. But they know Comey's got to spend a lot of money to do this. And so, Jeff Bezos doesn't want to spend that money. He'd rather give it to Melania for her documentary. Okay, so they'll still stay in line with him. And by the way, Richard Nixon was hosting state dinners, and he was doing all the bells and whistles stuff. And he looked quite imperious in June and July, and then he left in August of 1974. So Trump's not leaving. I'm not predicting that he's leaving. They're not going to knock him out of office. They don't have the guts to do that. But he'll be in office. If they lose the House, there'll be tons of investigations that will go nowhere, and there'll be a lot of drum beating about that, but nothing will happen. But his power is going to be down. His power will be down a notch. They're going to vote against him on a lot of things that he doesn't like. Okay, and I predict this will be more beneficial to Ukraine, and it'll be more beneficial to our allies. And by the way, we haven't gotten to the tariffs, but, I would like to come back on after the Supreme Court makes that decision, because we're going to know if we have a country or not.
Right.
Right. Because if they rule against them, then you and I will have the conversation. Well, we got a country. They ruled against them. The thing is completely bogus. Rand Paul's on it. All the constitutional lawyers are on it. He lost in the district court. He lost in the appellate court. You heard Roberts and some of the other judges like, what the hell is going on here? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Gorsuch was really getting into it.
So I predict they're going to rule again. Now, they may split the baby, and they may say, listen, we're going to grant him emergency privileges for the first 6 months of his presidency. So all those tariffs that are paid up until now are good to go and stuck in the U.S. Treasury. But he's got to now go back to the Congress and ask the Congress to ratify the forward tariffs. That's splitting the baby. I predict that that's what they're going to do. But I don't think they're going to let him tax the American people without representation. Okay, because if they do that, Roberts is finished. Then you and I will get on the call, and I'll say, well, Roberts is finished. He's lost his standing. He pulled the pin on the last year. We figured out that the Congress is a bunch of cowards. Right? If Kennedy was alive, Jack Kennedy would be writing the book Profiles in Cowardice. It'd be a phone book. Okay, but he's not alive anymore. So we have these cowards in the Congress. So that didn't hold from a check and balance perspective. But now it's up to the court. And if the court blinks on this will be a big sign that we're in a lot of trouble in the country in terms of what the founders wanted for the country, in terms of principled men and women standing up to nut jobs. And so that's where we are right now.
Okay, so if you're in the cabinet and you're watching this play out and you understand that, A, everybody hates Trump around him, and this is the beginning of the end, as you proclaim, how are you trying to build your own power base? You've spent a lot of time with politics. You've seen it up close, as you said. Yeah, well, you've spent a lot of time watching it. How do you think this is playing out with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth? I mean, they're all circling for the job.
I would have said 8 months ago, Pete Hegseth, good-looking kid. He's articulate. He's got a good television presence. He would have a shot at the presidency. Now, after watching his intellectually vacuous behavior over the last 9 months and the deer in the headlights insecurity that he represents, he's got no shot, okay, and he's going to get run over. He's not up for the job, okay? Rubio and Vance are cunning, ruthless politicians, but they're too close to Trump. So they're going to go, you remember the scene in Fargo where he put the guy in a wood chipper and they were just chunking him down? Those two guys are going in a wood chipper because that's what Trump does. He is a tragic Shakespearean figure. He hates himself, but what he hates more is the idea that a younger person could take his seat of power. We read this in Euripides, we read this in Aeschylus, and we're reading it in Shakespeare.
I was going to say it's almost every Shakespeare play.
Yeah. So this is he's gonna chop them up, Got to do it because he won't be himself if he doesn't. And they're too close to Trump. And by the way, Vance is more talented than Rubio because Vance is smarter than Rubio, but Vance got too close to Trump. Now, Vance could, if something, God forbid, happened to Trump, and I certainly don't wish that, I want him to live out his full term because he got democratically elected, and so he deserves to live out his full term, and I don't want anything to happen to him. But if something did happen to him, that would be Vance's path into the presidency, but he won't be Trump. He'll go tech broligarch on everybody, and it'll be a totally different thing. It'll be like T-bro, tech broligarch as opposed to MAGA, right? And Rubio can't get there because he's literally like a weather vane. I mean, it's like he's literally got a propeller spinning on the top of his head, and the American people really don't like that. I mean, at least with Trump, you have a congenital liar, and you got a guy that's a one-message candidate, and his message was the border. His message was immigration, and the people were very fed up, and Biden wouldn't listen. He reversed all of his executive orders, and he got smoked on immigration. And by the way, the same thing in New York. Mamdani is like Trump. He had one message, that was affordability. He didn't care about anything else. Well, you're an anti-Semite. Let's talk about affordability. Well, you said this. Well, let's talk about affordability. You're going to legalize this or that. No, let's talk about affordability. And by the way, let's just go over his success. He had 50% plus voter turnout, 50% plus, and he beat Curtis Lewa and Andrew Cuomo combined. So these are very talented politicians. Trump is a talented politician, but he's done. You're not going to be able to serve another term. They're not going to let him do it.
Do you think that J.D. Vance leaves the MAGA base behind him?
Well, he'll fake MAGA. Remember, he got Elon Musk to stand down from America's party. Remember, we were going to start a new party?
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you about that. You think he stood down from it, has he?
Yeah, so he went to Musk and said, let's cool out. You and Thiel helped me get the job. Let's cool out. I'm going to be the guy. Don't you want me to be the guy? I'll be your broligarch. The goal is to help you and Thiel and these other guys be worth $1 trillion, right? Because, remember, some people like money and other people like significance, right? You got to understand what the motivations are. Vance has got a very dysfunctional background. Read his book. A lot of these nuts that have dysfunctional backgrounds, they want to launder themselves and their family through political acclamation. You're like, well, I came from a destructive, dysfunctional background, but I'll be president of the United States. It'll make me feel better about myself. Richard Nixon, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and now you got J.D. Vance, and weirdly Trump in a weird way, because his father didn't really like him, so he's out to prove something.
It's fascinating, your analysis of it. So if J.D. Vance is too close to Trump...
But why is it fascinating, Joanna? Because the other people don't talk like this? Because they're like afraid to talk like this? Or why is it fascinating?
I love the line that you just drew through all the dysfunctional presidents that we've had, leaving out George W. Bush, whose father, of course, was president.
Yeah, well, he wasn't dysfunctional. He just had a pathway to the presidency and name recognition, so he pursued that at a good time for him. But these other guys are trying to launder themselves. Remember, they're all outsiders. And there's two types of outsiders. There's a comfortable outsider, or there's an uncomfortable outsider. If you're an uncomfortable outsider, you end up mean and angry. Rudy's an uncomfortable outsider. Trump is an uncomfortable outsider. Obama was generally a comfortable outsider, and so was Clinton. And you can go through them. Mamdani is a comfortable outsider. He likes himself. He's making a joke of the whole thing. He's got a great smile. He's got probably one of the best smiles in American politics since Jack Kennedy and Barack Obama. And look, you can dislike him. I think he's got crazy policies, but he's a very effective politician.
No question, and a hugely enthusiastic voter turnout, the biggest voter turnout since the 60s, right? So he's really got people engaged, as has Donald Trump. And I came across a great quote, which I've used on the podcast before, but I think you'll like it. It's by Trey Parker, as you know, the co-creator of South Park. And when someone asked him, why has South Park become political? He said, no, you're looking at it the wrong way. Politics has become pop culture. And that's what I think Mamdani understands. That's what Trump understands, that the worlds have melded, right?
I agree with that, but that's a cop-out by that kid that created South Park. He's trying to give you an alibi. He's going after Trump with South Park because he hates Trump. And he's trying to expose through humor the hypocrisy and the meanness and the viciousness, but then also this crazy Christian orthodoxy that doesn't fit with the lifestyle, right? He's like, it's like watching, it's like having like an after party for Hunting Wives on Netflix. You watch that show?
Of course, I loved that show. Right? I love that show. Yeah, you like that show because it's exposing all this Christian orthodoxy as hypocrisy. Right.
And so he's trying to do that with South Park. This is like an after party for Hunting Wives. And he's trying to use his humor and he's trying to use his animation to expose how wrong all of this is.
I'm quite surprised that Trump or J.D. Vance hasn't reacted against it, given how they went after CBS, and yet it's the same owner. It's Paramount.
I can explain that. They want to control the news, and they care less about the satire.
Is that because you think they actually find the satire funny, or they just don't think it has any impact?
Trump does not find it funny, trust me. He hates it. But his attitude is he wants to go after the news, and if they're putting him on 60 Minutes and they've muted all of these left-leaning journalists that attack him, that's okay. And if they got some joker making animation videos of him and Vance in bed with each other, which was really funny, by the way, what's the big deal? You know what I mean?
So, all right. So you've ruled out Pete Hegseth, you've ruled out Marco Rubio, you've ruled out J.D. Vance. Who do you see emerging as a potential Republican leader? We're used to talking about who we think would be Democrats.
Cruz will run. Rand Paul will run. Glenn Youngkin will run. They're all coming back.
Rand Paul will run, but Rand Paul's not going to get anywhere near it. He has no ability with people.
But he'll be on the debate stage, and he will force some of the conversation. He will force some of the conversation. He's been right on the lack of due process in murdering people off the coast of Venezuela. He's right on the tariffs.
Well, he's right on tons of things, right? But he doesn't have that popular appeal that would get him elected to president. No, you're right. He can drive the debate.
Doesn't have the popular appeal, but Vance and Rubio are too close to Trump. So it'll be another person in the Republican Party that will try to thread the needle between old school Republicanism and MAGA, and they'll try to see if they can get it done. But when Trump leaves the stage, because this is a personality cult, the stage is going to be open. There's going to be a very broad intellectual debate and a very broad intellectual fight in that party. I'm not saying we're returning to old school Mitt Romney Republicanism. We're not. But it's not going to be Trumpism, because it could be somebody that we're not 100% focused on. I don't know. I weirdly like Tom Massey. Weirdly, I think the guy is like articulate, and I think he's taken the heat from Trump and he stood in there. I think it's pretty impressive. But I'm not saying it's going to be him. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm willing to bet it won't be Rubio or Vance.
What about Tucker Carlson?
There's no chance.
Megyn Kelly?
No. They're pundits. They're not. Remember, this is But do you say that? But Donald Trump was a reality television presenter. If you're in the media, it's a knife fight. If you're in the media, it's a knife fight. If you're in politics, it's a Gatling gun and a sausage grinder. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, in the media, I get cut here, I get cut there, boo-hoo. But in that game, they're coming hard with the chainsaw. Everybody's wearing the Jason mask from Friday the 13th, and the calls are coming from inside the house, and they're trying to kill each other.
Well, that's true, but Donald Trump wasn't a politician, which is why people liked him, and Tucker isn't a politician, which might be why people like him. He's clearly building a sort of base.
I disagree with that, so I'm going to say something very different. That was a very good 2015-16 statement. But it turned out that Donald Trump was always a latent politician. And Donald Trump turned out to be a very hard-knuckled 19th century politician, okay, where they were going after each other. And remember, I think John Adams, in the early part of the 19th century, called Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson called John Adams a hermaphrodite. Remember that? I think
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. They go after each other that way, this very hard-knuckled way. Turns out that Trump was more of a politician than we realized, but Tucker Carlson is not a politician. He doesn't talk like a politician, doesn't think like a politician. Just the fact that he brought the Looney Tunes guy on, Fuentes, and didn't really debate him, okay, is a sign that he's tone deaf on like what's really going on, and so it was reprehensible. I think personally he's an asshole, and I've said that on my podcast. I don't mind saying it on your podcast, and he comes across like an asshole. You have to be, again, you can dislike Trump, but there's enough people that find Trump likable and humorous. Trump is a great stand-up comedian. He knows how to deliver the lines. He's a good communicator. He's got a presence about him. Again, you may not like him, but you can see how he got to the presidency running against a Hillary Clinton or a Kamala Harris. Interestingly enough, the guy that he hates the most is the one he couldn't beat. That's why he hates him so much. That's why he's got an auto pen picture of him in the hallway there, the outdoor hallway. And that's why, because, to quote Joe Biden, he beat Trump like a drum.
Right.
And he hates him for that reason, because he knows, look, I mean, we're in overtime now, but listen, Barack Obama caused Trump. You know that, I know that, because he blocked Joe Biden from primarying Hillary Clinton in 2016. And also he went very hard at the white culture, and he was really the germination of the woke culture in the country. And the woke culture is not liked in this country. 54% of the white women voted for Trump. 46% of all women voted for Trump. They don't like it. They don't like their men, their husbands, their brothers, their sons. They don't like what's going on in the culture. Okay, and you got a guy behind you. He looks like Napoleon. I always say this.
I do.
Donald Trump is Napoleon. He is the Napoleon of the culture war.
Right.
He can see the battlefield better than anybody, and he knows how to beat the brains out of the Democrats and get them to run in circles. So, but it's coming to an end now. We're watching the closing chapters of this sordid, bizarre thing that's happened to the country. And now the question is, will there be a transformational post-partisan group of leaders that will come together to heal the country, or will they continue to beat their brains in for a little more time? But I'm optimistic on America, because this is what happens in America. We dunk ourselves, and then we go through a period of reflection after the dunking, and then we have a massive renewal. And if you go throughout our history, that's what we do. We dunk ourselves. It's very tribal. Lots of different people from different ethnic backgrounds in the country fighting it out. And then that's not working. We go through a period of reflection, and then we get to the renewal. And we're not quite there yet, but we're going to get there. And
Good.
So I'm optimistic.
All right, that's a very optimistic note to end on, reflection and renewal. Anthony, I want you back the moment the Supreme Court makes the decision on the tariffs.
Why the red? Is this a sign that you're a Republican, or do you just like the color red?
No, I love the color red. Color red. It's optimistic. Look, you're in black, super depressing black, even though you look
I'm black.
You look like a mod. Well, your hair looks good. It's very sort of greased back like a 50s rocker. You could go straight on stage.
I've got some good product in the hair today. I think I'm rocking the hair today, although I could use a little color on the sides here. See, this is Latin American.
Is it going gray? Is it going gray on the sides?
Joanna, this is Latin American dictator brown, if you ever want to switch up your hair color, okay?
Okay, that's good to know.
I was using Cuban leader black, but it looked like shit on television, so
it's looking pretty good. It looks like you could get on a Vespa and speed off into quadrophenia.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying.
Bizarrely, I'm taking that as a compliment.
Okay, take it as a compliment. Come back and discuss tariffs the minute SCOTUS makes a decision.
That's a deal.
Good. All right. See you soon. Well, there's a lot to digest in that. I thought Andrew Loney had some theories, but now Anthony Scaramucci is throwing out theories, and I'm just, my head's spinning a bit, really. But it is interesting that he sees a different future for the Republican Party, and he's counting out J.D. Vance, he's counting out Marco Rubio, and he's counting out Pentagon Pete. So we'll have him back the minute SCOTUS makes a decision on the tariffs. Until then, if you have been, thank you for watching us. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to the Daily Beast, because we really do chronicle what's going on minute by minute, moment by moment, second by second, and it changes all the time. Feel free to leave us a comment on YouTube. And don't forget, as our First Lady would have us, be beast. And a special thank you to our Be Beast tier YouTube members, which you can be a member of too. And then your name will be called out at the end. Herbie, Andrew Meller. I've noticed that Michael always pronounces it Mellor. Andrew, if you're listening, please tell us, are we correct? Fulvia Orlando, Laz Conde, Sandra Clark, M. Greiner, Bonzo, Vala Francisco, Bocock DC, Karen White, Heidi Riley, Connie Rutherford, Sharon Shipley, and Andrea Hodel. And thanks to our production team, Devon Rogerino, Anna von Ursen, and the estimable, or is it the inestimable, Jessie Millward.